23 years ago, he had stood before the President of the United States, chest full of ribbons, cameras flashing, receiving a medal for extraordinary heroism. Today, he sat on cold concrete, holding a sign that read, "Homeless Veteran, Anything Helps." The distance between those two moments wasn't measured in years, but in battles no one talks about, the kind fought long after the war ends. Welcome to Hidden Legends. Before we begin this powerful story of forgotten honor and unexpected recognition, tell me in the comments what city you're watching from today. And if you believe stories like this need to be remembered, hit that subscribe button and help us make sure they never fade away. The corner became his at 6:30 every morning. Before the other homeless stirred, before the city began to move, Marcus Williams would quietly settle into position. He'd slide his old military bag off his shoulder, lean it against the wall, adjust his worn jacket, and begin the first watch of the day. Marcus was 67, but his posture remained military. Back straight, shoulders pulled back, eyes constantly scanning his surroundings. That corner under the streetlight felt as serious to him as any guard post he'd held in Afghanistan years ago. The difference was, now he wasn't looking for enemies. He was looking for someone who might help. His sign was weathered. The cardboard edges had curled from moisture. The letters had faded to barely readable. But Marcus positioned it in front of him each day with the same care, like he was conducting a ceremony. Homeless Veteran. Anything helps. 6 words. The summary of his story. People would pass. Most avoided eye contact. Some dropped loose change. Very few stopped to talk. Marcus never pushed, never told his story. He'd just say thank you, nod his head, and continue waiting. Because Marcus Williams knew how to wait. He'd learned it over many years. He'd enlisted in 1979 at 18, young, ambitious, burning with desire to serve his country. He'd stood out in basic training. His physical strength, mental toughness, and natural leadership caught attention early. His instructors recognized he was something special. He'd been selected for Rangers, then Delta Force. The hardest missions, the most dangerous operations, places that didn't appear on any reports, operations that never made the files. Marcus just did his job, quietly, professionally. What happened in 1991 during the Gulf War had changed everything. 3rd day in, his unit came under heavy enemy fire. 5 soldiers were wounded. The rescue operation lasted 8 hours. Marcus, alone, behind enemy lines, had carried each wounded soldier to safety one by one. When the 5th and final soldier was being extracted, Marcus took hits, in the leg, in the shoulder, but he didn't quit. He saved that soldier too. Bleeding, fighting for his life, he'd carried that last man to the safe zone. Medal of Honor. The highest honor the nation could give a soldier, from the president's hand. Cameras, reporters, his family's proud faces watching. For conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity. The words still echoed in his ears. That day, he was one of America's most honored soldiers. But the war hadn't left Marcus behind. PTSD, insomnia, nightmares, months spent in hospitals, therapy sessions, medications. The military doctors had done their best, but the war inside Marcus continued. He'd lost his first job in 1995. Security company, night shift. One night he'd had a panic attack, the old memories flooding back. His boss tried to be understanding, but business was business. 2nd job, 3rd job, 4th job. They'd all ended the same way. Marcus was perfect as a war hero, but he failed as a peacetime employee. His marriage ended in 1998. Sarah had lasted 3 years, but finally surrendered. I love you, Marcus, but I fell in love with the man at war, not the man who came home. The drinking problem started. At first, he thought he could control it, just to sleep, just to quiet the memories. But alcohol had taken command of Marcus, too. In 2003, he'd lost his last job. This time, no one was understanding. He'd been labeled unreliable. At 50, Medal of Honor recipient Marcus Williams couldn't find a single company that would accept his resume. The house went, the car went. Finally, he'd sold everything and rented a storage unit, putting his belongings there. His medal sat among those items, gathering dust, forgotten. He'd been on the street since 2005. 18 years, shelters, temporary jobs, occasional help from old military buddies. But nothing had been permanent. Marcus approached street life with military discipline. He'd wake at the same time every morning, clean himself, organize his clothes, try to maintain his dignity as much as possible. He'd never been aggressive, never caused trouble. His corner was strategically chosen, close to the metro station, but not too crowded, a place where working people would pass but wouldn't be in a hurry. Marcus had used his old tactical training even in selecting this spot. He'd collect an average of $15 to $20 a day, for food, for cleaning, sometimes for a place to spend the night. He never indulged in luxuries. Survival mode was active, just like in his old operations. People would see him but pretend not to. Some felt sad, some felt uncomfortable. Very few stopped to talk. But Marcus didn't judge anyone. Everyone had their own battles. All he tried to do was maintain his honor. That Medal of Honor was still there, in storage, gathering dust. But its meaning lived in Marcus's heart. Nothing could erase that. That Tuesday morning was like any other. Marcus had settled into his corner, placed his sign in front of him, and begun the first watch of the day. It was 8:30 a.m. The work traffic was heavy. People rushed past, some talking on phones, some sipping their coffee. Marcus watched them, but wasn't trying to draw attention. He was just there, present and respectful. Just then, a different figure emerged from the crowd. Tall, straight-backed, graying hair. He wasn't wearing a military uniform, but his walk, his posture, the way he scanned his surroundings gave everything away. Colonel Michael Torres, a retired officer with a 35-year military career, was walking to get coffee after dropping his grandson at school. A routine morning, a routine path. But when he saw the man on the corner, his steps slowed. At first, it was just general attention, the automatic empathy he felt toward another veteran. But then something seemed off. That posture, the position of those shoulders, the way he held his head. Torres recognized these things. This wasn't just any former soldier. This was a combat veteran, and not just combat, special operations. Torres stopped. He studied Marcus more carefully. Age, height, general features, and then something came to mind. A very distant, very old memory. 1991 Gulf War. Torres was a young lieutenant then, working in intelligence. Operation reports would come in. They'd read them, file them. That report was special, classified, the kind only a few people could see. 5 soldiers had been rescued by one person under enemy fire in an 8-hour operation. The rescuer had also been wounded, but completed his mission. Name, Marcus Williams. Rank, Staff Sergeant, Unit, Delta Force, and the photograph. Young, determined, eyes showing the weariness of war, but the pride of duty. Torres had never forgotten that photograph, because that report had motivated him to advance in his military career. There, he'd thought, that's what a real soldier looks like. Now, 23 years later, the man from that photograph was sitting on a corner, aged, worn, but that posture was still there. That honor was still there. Torres approached. Marcus noticed him but didn't shy away from eye contact. If this man wanted to do something, Marcus would face it head on. "Excuse me," Torres said, respect in his voice. "Is your name Marcus Williams?" Marcus was surprised. No one had asked his name in years. "Yes, sir, you are." "Colonel Michael Torres, retired. May I ask you something? Were you in the Gulf in 1991? Marcus's heart rate increased. This conversation couldn't lead anywhere good. "Yes, sir, I was there." Torres knelt down, getting to Marcus's level. "You saved those 5 soldiers, didn't you?" Marcus froze. He didn't know how to answer this question. For years, no one had asked about his past. Everyone just saw him as homeless veteran. How did you? I read the report of that operation," Torres said. "When I was a young lieutenant, I also knew you were awarded the Medal of Honor. I never forgot." Marcus's eyes filled with tears. "That was a long time ago, sir. I'm not that man anymore." "No," Torres said firmly. "You're still that man. The medal is just a piece of metal. It wasn't given to you because you deserved it. It was given because it recognized what was already inside you." People around were starting to notice the situation. A colonel talking to a homeless man on the street, kneeling down, was drawing attention. Torres continued. "I know life hasn't been fair to you. I know the system left you alone. But I'm here, as an American soldier, to pay the debt I owe you." He handed Marcus an envelope from his pocket. "This isn't just money. This is your country's respect for you. And I personally apologize to you. I'd seen you here before but didn't recognize you. That was my mistake." Marcus's hands were trembling as he took the envelope. "Sir, I thank you, but you don't need to apologize. I was just doing my job." "No, Marcus," Torres said. "You saved 5 men's lives. That's not just a job, that's heroism, and heroes shouldn't be living on the streets." That day changed everything for Marcus, not just the financial help Torres gave him, but what he reminded him of. The next day, Marcus was back at his corner, but there was a difference. He held his head higher. There was something in his eyes that hadn't been seen in years: hope. Torres had kept his word, not just that day, but in the days that followed. They'd talked, made plans, veteran assistance organizations, housing programs, job placement services. "The system isn't perfect," Torres had said, "but it's not completely broken either. Sometimes you just need to knock on the right doors." Marcus had his storage unit. Inside were his belongings, his memories, and that medal. Torres had accompanied him there. When they pulled the medal from its box, both men remained in silence. "This is yours," Torres had said, "and you deserve it, every day." 2 weeks later, Marcus was living in a small apartment. Thanks to the Veteran Assistance Program, he was receiving rental support. It wasn't perfect yet, but it was a beginning. Torres had gotten him into veteran counseling work. He was talking to young people, soldiers struggling with PTSD, sharing his own experience. "Sometimes," he would tell them, "the place you fall isn't meant to break you, it's meant to remind you who you are." 6 months later, Marcus Williams was a very different man. Not physically, but spiritually. You could still tell he'd aged, he still had struggles. But now he was standing. He was working in veteran counseling, giving speeches telling his own story, talking to other veterans living on the streets. And he still visited his old corner. But not to sit this time, to help others. He and Torres had become friends. They had coffee every week. They talked, shared memories. "I know you saved me," Marcus had said one day. Torres had smiled. "No, Marcus, you were already saved. I just helped you see it. Because some people earn medals, some achieve honor. But real heroes never give up, even when they fall. Sometimes they just need to remember who they are." Marcus Williams was a Medal of Honor recipient, and he'd never lost it. It had just been forgotten for a while. So I ask you, have you ever encountered someone like Marcus? People who seem ordinary on the surface but carry extraordinary stories? Share their names in the comments. Tell us their stories. Because here at the Human Stories, we believe real heroes don't just stand on podiums. Sometimes they sit on corners, quietly, until someone notices them. If this story moved you, share it, subscribe, and help keep these voices alive. We'll see you in the next story, and until then, if you see an old man sitting quietly on the street, look twice, because you never know what kind of story he might be carrying.